Listen.
But all I heard, gun, and all you had to tell me was gun. My ass was gone.
We turned on the TV, and we seen on the news that my best friend got killed.
Anthony B.
Anthony B. Yeah.
The Night Guy members learned to fear Bobby Brown and New Edition. It all went down during the 1989 Budweiser Superfest Tour, where rising stars Guy shared the stage with R&B legends New Edition, and quickly realized they were in over their heads.
We turned on the TV, and we seen on the news that my best friend got killed.
Anthony B.
Anthony B. Yeah.
What should have been a celebration of R&B quickly turned violent. Behind the curtain, egos clashed, fists flew, gear got smashed, and by the end of the night, someone pulled a gun. One man was left bleeding. So how did a night of music spiral into mayhem? Let's break down the chaotic moment R&B turned deadly. In the summer of 1989, two popular R&B groups, New Edition
Listen.
and Guy, were part of a big music tour called the Budweiser Superfest. This tour brought together many famous black music acts, and fans were excited. New Edition was the main group, meaning they were the headliner, and performed last. But Guy was also becoming very famous with a new sound called New Jack Swing, which mixed R&B with hip-hop beats. Even though Guy was not the headliner, they had many fans and a lot of energy. This made things a little tense. The success of Guy made some people wonder who the crowd really came to see, which started quiet jealousy and competition between the two groups.
And then there was like, so who's gonna go on first? So this is a back and forth with this, and I don't know if they flipped a coin or whatever it was.
The first real sign of trouble happened in Greensboro, North Carolina. Guy was on stage performing their set, but they went over their time. That means they performed longer than they were supposed to. This caused problems for New Edition because they had to wait. Their team got upset because it delayed everything, including stage setup. Things got worse when someone from Guy's team reportedly kicked or pushed some of New Edition's equipment. It wasn't clear if it was on purpose or by accident, but it made the situation more heated. When you have two big groups with big egos, even a small thing like that can turn into a big deal.
New Edition, I felt, was bigger, you know. They were before us. Actually, they were out when we had kids at work.
Things didn't stay behind the scenes for long. At one of the shows, while Guy was still on stage going past their time again, some members of New Edition got angry and came out during Guy's performance. People in the crowd were shocked. It wasn't planned, and it turned into a mess. The two groups started yelling at each other. Then things got physical. Punches were thrown, and some equipment got damaged. What started as a music tour became a fight in front of fans. This moment showed how bad things had become between New Edition and Guy. It was no longer just tension. It was a public fight. At that time, both Guy and New Edition had huge fan bases. People were very excited to see them perform together.
And then there was like, so who's gonna go on first? So this is a back and forth with this, and I don't know if they flipped a coin or whatever it was.
The idea of both groups going on tour seemed like a dream come true. They were both loved by many, and everyone thought it would be something special. Fans were ready to dance, sing along, and enjoy the music. But behind the scenes, things were not smooth. From the very beginning, there were problems.
The first date in Connecticut, it was a little bit of drama.
Teddy, who was in Guy, said the tour was supposed to be equal and fair. He wanted both groups to shine. Gene, who managed Guy, made it clear if the deal was not fair, then they would not join the tour.
Gene wasn't taking nothing less, so he was like, listen, we're going to make this thing equal, or we ain't doing this at all.
Okay.
Gene talked to everybody like that.
He said that both groups had to be treated the same. Al Heyman, who helped put the tour together, also agreed. He promised that no group would be treated as more important than the other. Both Guy and New Edition were supposed to share the spotlight equally. The first concert of the tour was held in Hartford, Connecticut. Things went wrong immediately. Before the show even started, there was an argument between the two groups. They couldn't agree on who should go on stage first. It might sound like a small thing, but in the music world, who performs last is often seen as the main act. After a lot of talking, they came up with a plan. If the concert was in a place where Guy had more fans, then Guy would perform last.
Sometimes New Edition, because of the heavy load and the different buses and all of that stuff, sometimes they would make it to the venue late.
If it was in a place where New Edition had more fans, then New Edition would go last. On paper, this seemed fair. It sounded like a good solution to keep the peace. But even after they agreed to this plan, there was still a lot of tension. Some people were still upset and didn't like the arrangement. The bad feelings didn't go away. Teddy said he looked up to New Edition. He had been a fan of their music for a long time. They were already stars before Guy became popular. Teddy said he respected them and didn't want any trouble. He didn't care if Guy performed first or last. To him, it was more important to just enjoy performing and to give fans a great show. He wanted to have fun on stage, but not everyone in his group felt the same way. Aaron Hall, Damian Hall, Gene Griffin, and Timmy Gatling all wanted Guy to look strong. They wanted the group to prove that they were just as big and important as New Edition. Teddy was the peaceful one. He believed that their talent and music would speak for them. He didn't want to compete. He just wanted to do what he loved. Even though Teddy wanted peace, the fighting didn't stop. It wasn't just the artists who were arguing. The people who worked behind the scenes were fighting too. The crew members, those who handled the stage, sound, and lights, also got caught up in the drama. At the very first concert, things already got heated. There were loud arguments and bad feelings. People were disagreeing about how much stage space each group should get. They argued about who should use certain equipment and how much time each group had to perform. The fighting wasn't only coming from the stars, it was all around them. It made the tour feel like a battle instead of a celebration. What was supposed to be a fun event started turning into a stressful and messy experience. At that time, Bobby Brown was no longer in New Edition. He had gone solo and was doing his own thing. He was becoming very successful on his own. After he left, Johnny Gill joined New Edition. Johnny brought a new sound and helped the group stay strong. But even with this new mix, the problems between the two groups didn't stop. As the tour went on, the problems got worse. There was more fighting, more disagreements, and more shouting behind the scenes. Teddy said that at many shows, it felt like fights were about to break out. People were angry and emotional. The arguments weren't just about music anymore. They were about pride, respect, and ego. It wasn't fun anymore. The tour started to feel more like a war than a concert. One night after a show, something truly terrible happened. Teddy and his group had finished performing and went back to their hotel. Everyone seemed confused, like something serious had happened, but no one was sure what it was yet. They grabbed something to eat and were planning to leave early the next morning. But someone from their group overslept, so they ended up leaving later than they had planned. When they arrived in Pittsburgh, things immediately felt strange. As soon as they got near their hotel in Pittsburgh, they saw something shocking. Fire trucks, police cars, and ambulances were everywhere.
The next thing you know, We seen fire trucks, ambulance, police, mini cars. We couldn't even get into the hotel. They took us around the back.
The whole front of the hotel was blocked off. They couldn't even walk through the main entrance. Hotel staff told them to go around to the back. Teddy's brother, Sifu, noticed that something was wrong. He and another friend named Abdul Mu said they were going to find out what had happened. One of Teddy's other brothers told the security guards to take Teddy and the rest of the group straight to their rooms. Their boss, Gene Griffin, gave that order. He didn't want the media or reporters asking them any questions. Once they got to their rooms, they turned on the television. That's when they found out the heartbreaking news. Teddy's best friend, Anthony B., had been shot and killed. He wasn't just a friend. He was like family to Teddy. They had grown close over the years. The news report said that someone from New Edition's crew was responsible for the shooting. Teddy couldn't believe what he was hearing. He was in complete shock. It felt like the world had stopped. The pain he felt was deep and real.
We turned on the TV, and we seen on the news that my best friend got killed.
Anthony B.
Anthony B. Yeah.
Teddy explained that Anthony B. hadn't been with them during the whole tour. He was in Harlem at first, but when he heard something might be going wrong with Teddy, he rushed to join him. That's the kind of friend Anthony was. He brought a few other friends with him, including a man named Vaughn. They all packed into a car and drove to meet up with Teddy. The car was full of clothes, equipment, and unfortunately, weapons too. Anthony B. was the one who drove the car. Teddy also mentioned a man named Mike Floyd, who was part of their group. When they reached the hotel, no one expected anything bad to happen. But later, they heard that Anthony B. had been shot in the back 4 times, right at the hotel's revolving doors. The person who shot him was from New Edition's side. The news reported this clearly. Teddy was speechless. He couldn't believe this had happened during what was supposed to be a music tour. Teddy also told a scary story from earlier in his life. He used to work in a music studio that was on top of a building. It was owned by a man named Gusto. Teddy was not involved in the street life, but the area he worked in was dangerous.
Gusto had a problem with some street guys, because Gusto used to be the street guy. He was like king of New York, the new young king of New York, and he was doing it, never got problem, never got busted.
Every week, there were gunfights outside, but Teddy stayed inside the studio, focused on music. Gusto built that studio just for him. Teddy said he never played around like others on the roof. He always tried to move forward in life and not backward. One day, Gusto told Teddy that he had something special coming. A few days later, Teddy began working in the new studio with his music partners. One of them was named Greg G., who has sadly passed away since then. They worked together, creating music and making beats. Gusto helped by buying all the music equipment they needed. They worked with famous artists like Heavy D and Kool Moe Dee. Everything seemed to be going well. But then, something terrible happened. They had just finished working on a beat for Kool Moe Dee and decided to step outside. Suddenly, a group of men appeared with big guns. These were not small weapons. They had AK-47s and .45 pistols. The men shouted for everyone to get on the ground. They pointed the guns at their heads. Teddy and his friends were terrified. They didn't know if they were going to live. They stayed very still, not making a sound.
And they had us get on the ground. They had AKs and 45s and had guns to our heads, and one by one, everybody get on the ground.
Timmy, one of the guys, walked out and saw what was happening. He tried to ask what was going on. One of the gunmen hit him in the head with a gun, and his ears started bleeding. They didn't let him even wipe the blood. Everyone was frozen with fear. The gunmen said they were looking for one person. They claimed that he owed them money. They brought that man upstairs and said if they didn't get their money, they would kill everyone. Gusto stepped in and said, "You don't want them. You want me. I'll take you to the money." Gusto went with them, and they locked Teddy and the others in the bathroom.
When they brought him upstairs, he's like, if he don't give us the money, we killing everybody in here. Gus was like, they don't want, y'all don't want them. Y'all want me. Y'all want the money? I'm gonna take y'all where the money is at.
Inside were Teddy, LeVar, Timmy, Money G, and Greg G. Cool Mo D had already gone home earlier, so he missed the scary event. They all stayed very quiet in the bathroom, scared that someone might still be outside. They waited, not knowing what was happening. After some time, the janitor, a man named Mike, came upstairs and lifted the gate. Teddy and the others asked who it was. Mike said, "It's just me." They were finally safe. They slowly came out of the bathroom. Gusto had been taken to his home. The gunman also tried to hurt Gusto's mother and wife, but Gusto begged them to let the women go. He told them, "Take me instead." He opened a safe and gave them money, but Gusto was clever. While the men were distracted, he jumped out of a window and escaped. A few weeks later, those gunmen were never seen again. After Anthony's death, Teddy Riley said, "I lost my best friend, and I couldn't take the pressure." This showed how deeply the loss affected him, not just as an artist, but as a person. It was too much to handle. He made a huge decision. During a live show at Madison Square Garden, a place where big artists perform, he told the crowd that he was leaving the group. That moment marked the end of his time with Guy. It was shocking to fans, but for Teddy, it was something he had to do to deal with his pain. After leaving Guy, Teddy didn't quit music. He still loved making songs, but he wanted a fresh start, something new and far from the sadness he felt. So he formed another R&B group called Blackstreet. This group had a different energy, and it gave Teddy a chance to begin again. Blackstreet became very popular in the 1990s. One of their biggest songs was No Diggity, which people still love today.
East side to the west side, pushing fat rides, it's no surprise.
By starting Blackstreet, Teddy was able to continue doing what he loved while leaving behind the painful memories connected to Guy. He used music to heal himself. It wasn't just about making hits, it was also about moving forward in life. Blackstreet gave him a second chance, and he took it. But after Teddy Riley left, things weren't the same for Guy. He was a major part of their music and style. The group tried to keep going. They even released a second album called The Future. This album had a very touching song called Long Gone, which they made in memory of Anthony B.
This is a dedication in memory.
It was their way of saying goodbye to a man who meant a lot to them. Even though they put out new music, it was hard for the group to keep the same energy and connection they once had. Fans noticed the difference. The bond between the members had changed, and the fun that used to be there wasn't the same anymore. Soon, the group decided to go their separate ways. Without Teddy, the magic they once had was hard to find again. As time passed, the people involved began to look back at what had happened. The fights, the arguments, and the tragic shooting of Anthony B. were painful memories, but they also taught important lessons. Some of the artists spoke publicly about how they regretted how things went down. They realized that the anger and fighting didn't help anyone, and only made things worse. This period of reflection helped them see the value of peace and communication. They learned that talking things out and understanding each other was better than letting emotions lead to violence. It was a hard lesson, but one that helped them grow as both artists and human beings. Even when Teddy joined the R&B group Blackstreet, he also had a serious problem with his former bandmate, Chauncey Hannibal. Riley recently asked a court for a restraining order against Hannibal. This means he wants the court to keep Hannibal away from him. Riley says Hannibal has done things that hurt him both personally and professionally. According to Riley, Hannibal has been dishonest, caused problems with their concerts, and even tried to take full control of the group name Blackstreet.
Well, I didn't register the name. What happened was Teddy let the name lapse. So what happened, I picked it up.
For many years, Riley and Hannibal worked together. But now, things have turned bad. Riley is accusing Hannibal of stealing the trademark, which means the legal right to use the name Blackstreet. Riley says Hannibal let the trademark expire on purpose. Then, Hannibal went and re-registered it under only his name, without telling Riley. This allowed Hannibal to control the band name and make money from it, without sharing anything with Riley.
When I got it, we started working together. You know what I mean? We formed a little agreement, and we had the terms in it and saying what we were going to do.
Yeah.
And you know, it just happened where he just didn't want to do it no more.
Originally, Hannibal was not even a singer in the group. Riley hired him just to help with paperwork and business duties. But over time, Hannibal got more involved. Riley claims that Hannibal never told him that the trademark was about to expire. Instead of reminding Riley, Hannibal quietly re-registered it himself. Riley found out about this only after it was already done. When Riley asked to be added back to the trademark, Hannibal said he would do it, but only if Riley paid him $90,000. Riley paid the money, but Hannibal still didn't add him back.
He just didn't want to. He didn't want to be in partnership with me anymore because, you know, we couldn't agree to agree. We couldn't, you know, it just wasn't going the way it's supposed to go. So he just went on, and now he's formed a new group.
This situation has caused many problems for Riley. He had a chance to perform on the Tom Joyner Cruise, a popular event for music fans. But when the organizers found out that Hannibal owns the trademark, they said Riley could not perform under the name Blackstreet. Hannibal even sent a legal letter to the cruise ship, warning them not to let Riley use the name. This letter is called a cease and desist, which means stop what you're doing or face legal action. Riley believes this is unfair. He created the group and helped make it famous. Now, he feels blocked from doing concerts and making money because Hannibal controls the name. Riley also says Hannibal has been using the group's money for his personal problems. He claims Hannibal used some of the money to pay off child support and taxes without telling him. This is a serious accusation because that money was meant for the band and its members, not for one person's private bills. Riley has taken legal steps to fix the situation. He has filed a lawsuit in court asking to be added back to the trademark. He is also asking for money to make up for the damage Hannibal has caused. Riley says he has already lost over $1 million because of Hannibal's actions. The money he paid, the concerts he lost, and the confusion about the band's name have all hurt his career. Riley feels betrayed because he once trusted Hannibal like a brother.